Tony, the mirror on the wall, it's very unusual, particularly the heart shape. What's the story behind that?
There's a very touching story behind that mirror. When Roland and Valentine divorced, Roland wrote to her and asked her if there was anything of the possessions that they'd acquired together that she wanted. And of course, you know, there were a lot of things. Some of them were quite valuable paintings, there were lovely furniture pieces and so on. The only thing that she asked for was the little heart-shaped mirror that they'd bought together at a fair in France. It was very touching that that was all she wanted, but it also shows how on a spiritual path she was. She'd left behind all materialistic desires and so on, and at this moment she was going to go and live in India in an ashram, which she did for the next year or so.
Because there's that wonderful photo of Roland's, isn't it, where she's walking off, is it up a hill or up a...
On a sand dune, yes, that's very touching. Actually, that was, I was, you know, used that as a sort of metaphor for them parting, although it was a year or so before they parted. I mean, it was the most fraught and difficult relationship. So Valentine was a very fiery and very kind of volatile person, and Roland was this very strong, steady English sort of suet puddingy person, and the two would have the most amazing fights, and she would go storming off and he would say, I always knew where to look for her. She would leave a few clues, and so, you know, he'd give it half a day and go after her. But after a while, this kind of discord just began to become a bit wearing, and more for Roland than it did for Valentine, and in the end they parted. Lee was very fond of buying these ghastly kitsch nudes for Roland. She knew his tremendous passion for the female form, and she'd come along and say, hi Roland, look, I just bought you another nude. She would go up here on the shelf. And then among all this, there's work by Picasso. There is this absolutely gorgeous little gravy jug or sauce jug, you see, a little person here. And yes, it was used. I mean, it wasn't just sat on the shelf as an ornament. It was used. And there's the plate with the bull ring in it. And then here's the picador. And then the two kind of like flower figure plates here. Yeah, they were things that Roland bought in Farleys, in the Madura pottery there. And he loved them, loved having around them, and he loved their vitality, and he loved the fact that we could use them. That made them part of our lives.
I was going to say, it seems that they weren't particularly precious about any of the objects, that even if it was something as valuable as Picasso, that it didn't matter. It was there to be used and enjoyed, not put away in a case.
Exactly, used and enjoyed. I mean, they knew how to look after stuff, but most conservators would have gone absolutely berserk if they'd come in here in Lee and Roland's day, because they attached so much importance about living with the work. They didn't always think about, well, perhaps we shouldn't hang that in bright sunlight, you know, and that sort of thing, which, of course, in the long term has had bad consequences, but at the same time it enabled us to live in close proximity of these wonderful works.